All right, next thing I want to do is really start talking about how to design a lesson. And to design a lesson, we want to think about the basic things that we add to any lesson. For example, if you're going to plan in any environment, you're going to start out with lesson objectives. Really think about what will the students be able to do when you are implementing any type of learning. So we really want to start out with the lesson objectives and making sure it's very clear. Next, think about what assessment you are going to give to the students. So the next key important part about any blended learning lesson or a traditional lesson is thinking about how are you going to check for understanding. Is it going to be through an exit ticket? Is it going to be through a quiz? Is it going to be through a choice board? So your assessments are essential. So we want to make sure that all those key things are a part of your blended learning lesson. All right. Blended learning does not mean it's all online or offline. It's a combination of both. One of the things that most teachers think is that if you're doing blended learning, you can't do whole group instruction. And I'm like, no, you can still do whole group instruction, but we're going to just minimize it. So for example, I'm getting ready to teach a new topic on finding area. So I'm going to give a whole group instruction saying, today we're going to be talking about area. What is surface area? Why do I need to know what surface area looks like? So I'm going to give a quick little fun learning opportunity for the students. Next, I'm going to go and tell them how today is going to run. And then I'm going to just give them how to find surface area, but make it short, sweet, and to the point. This whole group kickoff is really important. In a virtual learning environment, what you can do is you can set it up where that's your Zoom meeting. Your first kickoff of your Zoom meeting is your whole group instruction. If you're doing it in a social distance classroom, you can still set it up where everybody kind of sits at their seats and hears your instructions before you set them free into their learning studios. Just want to make sure you knew that. All right, so far, these three things are things that we always do in any lesson. This is where blended learning gets a little bit different. Instead of me continuing to teach the whole group the same content at the same pace, I am now going to break my classroom up into small group instruction. So in a small group instruction environment, I am going to pull students back based off of their ability. I'm going to put them in group A, I'm going to put them in group B, and I'm going to put some students in group C. Now some teachers ask me, is there only 3 groups? My answer is no. You can break them up into how many groups you have allotted time for. So this one, for example, I'm just doing 3 groups. And normally, I put out 4 different groups. And I meet with them based off of the data that I'm getting from their formative assessment from the week before. Or I might be working with the students that have high priorities or students, I'm going to actually switch that around. I'm going to put high priorities here, or students that are gifted. So in my blended learning environment, I'm going to meet with group A first, the kids who need that extra support. Maybe they're on a learning plan. Maybe they just really need help getting organized. They're going to meet with me first. My kids that are gifted or really understanding the concept, I'm going to put them last because they're going to learn in all the different learning studios before they get to me. And this is where I could take their learning to that next level. Okay. So the biggest part next is dividing the group up into these different groups. When I'm meeting with group A, what is group B doing? What is group C doing? Are they just sitting there? And the answer is no. They're going to be working in what we call learning studios. So this is a learning studio, this mini lesson, but also a learning studio could include independent practice. Independent practice is where the students can be working on vocabulary words. They could be going onto a website called Flocabulary. They could be doing independent reading. They could be working in quizzes. They could be doing a worksheet. Or even they could be doing skill building websites. All of these things are considered part of the blended learning resources that you could do for independent practice. We're really good as teachers at giving independent practice because as soon as we teach them something, we want them to show us that they understand it. So independent practice is just modeling what I've taught here for them to practice here. All right? So what are the rest? Okay, so Group A is still meeting with me. Group B might be doing independent practice. What is Group C doing? Group C might be on digital content. In a blended learning environment, we really rely heavily on digital content. That digital content is a second teacher in the classroom. So we want to make sure if I'm teaching surface area here, that they're learning about surface area here in just a different format. Maybe they're learning it in through Actively Learn. Maybe they're learning about surface area through a teacher video or freckle.com or maybe even Edpuzzle. I heard one of my friends last night, a teacher from Worthington City Schools, said Edulastic because of a math content. All of these things are just going to mimic what I'm teaching here, but in just a different format. Surface area here, and now surface area in digital content. What's really happening in these learning studios is that the learning is happening in different modalities. They're hearing it, they're doing it, they're tactile learners, they're kinesthetically learning, they're visually learning, all about surface area. Wait, I said kinesthetic. I don't have anything kinesthetic up here yet. That's what we call future ready. And future ready activities could consist of like a choice board. I want to make sure you guys can see that, okay? There you go. Choice board. And a choice board or different activities they can do is that they're going to create something. Maybe if they're learning about surface area, maybe they're going to wrap a present and they have to figure out how much wrapping paper is needed to cover a rectangular prism. They have to collaborate together, so they want to work together in teams. They need to communicate. They need to connect, meaning how do you connect surface area to finding volume, or how do you connect with other people globally? All of these things add up to what we call future-ready learning environments, where the students are going to be learning about surface area by creating a final product. Okay, so far this isn't too hard. Just taking my lesson and breaking it up into 4 key learning studios. And in a virtual classroom, this is really easy. I'm going to kickstart it, and then I'm going to do breakout rooms. And when I'm in a breakout room in a virtual lesson, the students are going to be practicing independent, or maybe they're going to go watch a video, or they're going to be working on their project. One other thing that I tend to add in, now you can stop there, that's completely fine, but I tend to add in vocabulary. I think vocabulary is always a good thing to add into any blended learning lesson plan. And the reason why is because it gives the kids that ability just to really practice those key words that we know are going to be part of that test. Finally, the last thing that you need to do when you're implementing blended learning is think about a closure. How are you going to bring everything together? How do you bring that whole group together to round out your lesson? Maybe you're going to talk about their homework. Maybe you're going to do next steps. Maybe even you're going to do an exit ticket. So maybe my exit ticket and my assessment is going to be part of my whole group closure. So this is how I would lesson plan out my lesson. And don't worry, we have templates out there that you're going to be able to use. But one thing that I'm going to talk about now and in the next video is time. How much time for each of these? So what I've created is like little circles here. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes doing whole group instruction. I'm just going to kickstart it. I'm going to get going with it, get the kids into what's happening for the day. Then as a teacher, I'm going to spend a total of 30 minutes in my small group instruction. And then as a teacher, I might spend 10 minutes or 5 minutes with my closing activity. So right there is about 45 minutes of my class period. Of course, some days I might need to add 5 or 10 minutes into my introduction, depending on if I need to take attendance, if something needs to be addressed. So that's where there's going to be a little bit of a variance between 45 and a 50-minute class period. What does it look like for the student's point of view? Okay, so their time allotment looks a little bit different. It's all built off of tens. We're going to spend 10 minutes or 5 minutes in whole group. We're going to spend 10 minutes in a mini lesson. We're going to spend 10 minutes in independent practice. We're going to spend 10 minutes in digital content. And then we're going to spend 10 minutes doing my formative assessment, 10 or 5 minutes depending on what I have left. So the kids are going to be working in this environment. That's 45 minutes of going from one group to another with a 5-minute closure at the end. That's for a 45 or 50-minute class period. It does work, but what you're going to notice in a blended learning environment is that these time constraints get really tricky. But don't worry, that's where phase 2 comes in. In phase 2, the students are going to have a checklist and they're going to be able to go and pick what they want to do first, second, and third. All right, here's our lesson plan. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to really dive in deeper into what this time allotment looks like for virtual and at a school setting.